Let's start with algebra. Let's have a look at 7. 7 is a number symbol which has only one value. So that's a known value, and that number we say it's a constant. If you work with a letter symbol, any letter of the alphabet, this instance we say X, that have various values is called a variable. So any alphabet letter is called a variable. If we say I've got 5p, so 5p implies 5 times p. So 5 is the number in front of my variable, and we refer to that as 5 is called the coefficient of p. So that's the coefficient of p. If we write 12 times p, we can have to write it in a shorthand form just as 12p. So 12p implies 12 times p. If you write this one, so it's 3 times p plus the 4 times the p, you can write it shorthand and say it's 3p plus 4p. But if I say the p times itself, then it will be a p squared. If it's a p times the p times the p, it's the p cubed. Then you use exponential form. If I look at this, x to the power of 4, so that means x is called the base, the 4 is called the exponent, and the whole thing, the x and the 4, is called the power. X plus 3 is called an algebraic expression because you not have to solve, you express the words into mathematical language, and that means you will use a letter of the alphabet and a constant. If I put an equal sign, then I will say it's an equation. We will do that later on. Then only a plus and a minus sign will separate terms. Only a plus and a minus will separate terms. So if you look at this one here, you'll see that's a plus sign and a plus sign. So this expression consists of 3 terms. Look at the variables there. You'll see it's an x and a y. So it contains 2 variables, an x and a y. 7 is called the constant. If you look at this one here, you'll see the plus sign will separate. So that means it consists of 2 terms. My alphabet letter is only an x, so that means x, and there's no constant, so that's 0. If I look onto more examples of coefficient, so if you say that 2x means then 2 times x, so the number in front of my variable x is called then the coefficient of x. If you look at negative 7x squared, so that means it's negative 7 times my x squared, so negative 7 is called the coefficient of x squared. If you've got 3xy, it means 3 times the x times the y. If the question is write down the coefficient of the x, so you cover the x, so it means it will be a 3 and a y. If I ask you what's the coefficient of the y, I cover the y, and then you see it's a 3 and a x. 3 is the numerical coefficient of the y and the x, because that's the known value. Now let's do a worksheet. I will also post the worksheet onto Google Classroom. Let's have a look at this one. State the number of terms in each of the following algebraic expression. So you've got 6 times the x, so only plus and minus separate terms, so that means it's a 1 term. 5x times y times not separating, so it's a 1 term. 5x plus y, the plus is separating there, so it's 2 terms. The expression consists of 2 terms. Look at this one here, so you got 5x minus the y, consists of 2 terms there, because the negative, the minus sign, is separating terms. This one is a division sign. 5x divided by y. Division not separating, so it's one term there. 10x plus the 3y. It means the plus sign will separate, two terms. If you work with brackets, even though there's a plus sign in the middle, it's not separating, the bracket makes a unit, so it's one term. If you look at this one here, 10x divided by 3y makes one term, no separation there. If you look at this one here, you see it's 2x plus 3 times 5x, so the plus sign separates, the times not, the plus sign separates, consisting of 3 terms. So the rest you can do, and the answers also given that you can practice that. If you look at the next one, they say state the variables, coefficient of the x, and the constant term of the following. So if you look at the first one, what will be the variable? That is your alphabet letter. You see that's the x. What is the coefficient of the x? That means what is the number in front of my x? It's a 9. What is the constant term? Constant term means the one that's known, so that's the 10. If you do now number 4, what will be the variables? You'll see the alphabet letter of the alphabet letter is an x and a y. Don't write xy, it's x and y. What is the coefficient of the x? I only look at the x term and I see in front of my x it's 1/3. What is the constant term? You see there's no constant term, no term on its own, so it will be a 0. Let's do number 7. What will be the variables there? Alphabet letters. It's a and a x. What is the coefficient of my x? So that's my x. What is in front of my x? It's a. Constant term, that's the value on its own, so that's the 4. Go to 10. What will be the variables? You'll see the alphabet letters will be an m and a x and a n. Coefficient of x, you only get the x in the last term there, so you cover the x there. What remains? Negative 2m, and the n will be the coefficient of my x. Constant term, that's the one on its own, so that's the 7 there. So that's the 7. Just want to go back to number 3 there. So if I look at that, what is my variable? It's an x. Now what is the coefficient of x? You can't see a number there, but it's invisible 1. So that means it's a 1 in front. What is the constant? It's 8. Okay, so let's look at exam questions. So if you look at this booklet, so now we say, examine the following algebraic expression. Examine means you must just look at it and make sure you understand what's going on there. First question is, how many terms are there in the expression? For 1 mark. So now you know plus and minus separates. So that's separation, separation, separates, and so you carry on. And then you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it will be 6 terms. List means write down the variables. What alphabet letter did we use? We only use an x. So that means it's an x. Then they ask you, write down the coefficient of the x4. Now I must find the term with the x4, and it will be this one, x4. Coefficient means what is in front there, so it's a plus 2. My answer will be plus 2. Write down the coefficient of x. Now I must find only the x. This is an interesting one because my x in front of my x is a invisible 1, but that one, it's negative 1 and it's divided by 3. So that means it's negative 1 over 3. Write down the constant term. What is the constant term? It means in the value on its own. So that's negative 10. Then they ask you, what is the degree of the expression? Now degree means the highest exponent of the x, or the variable. What is that one? It's to the fifth, to the fourth, third, second degree. So the highest exponent, we call it the degree, so that will be the exponent 5. So just go into Google Classroom and you can do the rest.